Welcome to the SEAT Research Seminar Series, Virtual Edition.
Dr. Hamady is an assistant professor of chemical engineering here at Oklahoma State University. She worked as a postdoc at Purdue before joining OSU in 2018. She got her PhD in chemical engineering in 2016 from the University of New Hampshire. Her research focuses on green nanotechnology and nanomanufacturing. More specifically, she's working on metal nanostructure synthesis, and her research focuses on a green, smart, and sustainable synthesis of metal nanostructures through utilization of millifluidic techniques to be integrated with artificial intelligence for the ultimate goal of precise control over their size and morphology for nanoelectronic applications, particularly green and sustainable transport conductive film manufacturing. Dr. Hamady's lab recently has been awarded 2 National Science Foundation grants. Dr. Hamady, we look forward to hearing from you.
Great, thank you so much for the nice introduction, and thanks everybody for taking time out of your lunchtime to listen to my seminar. Hopefully you enjoyed that. And as Dr. Bunting mentioned, I'm going to talk about sustainable, green, and smart nanotechnology and nanomanufacturing. And what I'm hoping to convince you why we call our lab as nanotechnology, green nanotechnology and nanomanufacturing lab, and why we call that as SMART. Here you can see like a schematic which shows what's going on in our lab in terms of like different projects. And also, as you can see, the foundation of our lab is based on continuous millifluidic reactor, which means that we are using like these millifluidic reactors for the synthesis of different types of nanomaterials, specifically metal nanostructures, and more specifically one-dimensional metal nanostructures. And our ultimate goal is to use these one-dimensional nanostructures to create transparent conductive film. And we envision a lab which will be able to produce like different nanomaterials, specifically metal nanostructures, for the use by other lab and researchers that they are working, for example, in drug delivery, catalysis, or like many other research areas in which nanomaterial that we produce can be used. So I'm going to start like with different projects. Actually, right now, there are 4 active projects, actually 3 active projects, and one of them is like kind of active in our lab. So I'm going to talk about those projects, what are the goal and objectives, and what's like the outcome, and some of like the results from like the experiments that we have done so far. So I'm going to start with the first one, which is the continuous large-scale manufacturing of functionalized silver nanowire transparent conductive films, which is supported by National Science Foundation. In this project, we are working and collaborating with Dr. Esme, Professor of Material Science and Engineering at OSU in Tulsa. And you can see like a schematic which shows what's going on in this project, which we are producing silver nanowires in a continuous manner. And then we functionalize the surface of silver nanowires using palladium nanostructures. And we are going to connect this continuous system to the printing machine by which we can continuously formulate ink and print them on flexible substrate to create transparent conductive film. And like the student who is working on this project is Destiny, who is a first-year PhD student in our group. The objective of like this work is the discovery of reaction conditions in millifluidic reactor to produce high-quality, low-cost silver nanowires to be connected to formulate ink that can be printed onto flexible substrate to create low-cost, transparent conductive films for Internet of Nanotings. Because we all know that like the interconnection of nano devices with the Internet has led to the development of new generation of Internet of Things, which is called as Internet of Nanotings. In those systems, like the capital investment in nanotechnology is like essential, and transparent conductive films is one of like the essential components of like different devices or like different nano devices in Internet of Nanotechnology. So it's important to be able to produce these transparent conductive films with high quality in low cost and large scale. So Our goal here is to explore the silver nanowire millifluidic reaction mechanisms and reactor conditions to optimize production quantity and quality, and also to study the large-scale millifluidic synthesis of functionalized silver nanowires using palladium nanostructures, because silver nanowires are like the most promising applicant to be used for the manufacturing of transparent conductive films. And then ultimately, we are going to couple this continuous preparation of silver nanowire into production to the printing machine by which we can create transparent conductive films. Definitely, the outcome will reduce manufacturing cost of transparent conductive films and will enable us to synthesize silver nanowires in which the characteristic of silver nanowires can be simply changed by changing the reaction conditions. And also, broadly, it will benefit American manufacturing. I'm going to kind of share some of like the results and convince you why the millifluidic setup and design that we are using in our lab is advantageous compared to the batch reactor. As you can see here, there are a couple of SEM images from the silver nanowires that we are producing in our lab. The 6 SEM image on the left-hand side of this slide shows the silver nanowires produced in batch reactor. As you can see, even the reaction conditions was exactly the same for all of these 6 reactions. We were not able to get 100% nanowires without like any other nanostructures, which means that we cannot have like a precise control over the size and morphology and size distribution of silver nanostructures production in batch system. However, if you take a look at the other 4 SEM images, which are the SEM image of silver nanowires produced in millifluidic reactor, you can see that we got like 100% silver nanowires without any other nanostructures as byproduct. And also we were able to produce silver nanowires at lower temperature compared to batch reactor. For example, you can see that like silver nanowires can be produced at temperature of 130 degrees C, which is not possible to be achieved at batch reactor, because for batch reactor, the minimum temperature is 150 degrees C that we need. And here you can see some like TEM image of the very long, thin nanowires, which means that we are producing high aspect ratio of silver nanowires, which is really important for us to create transparent conductive films in a millifluidic reactor. And also our elemental or like EDX analysis shows that these one-dimensional nanostructures or like nanowires are only consisted of silvers, and our UV spectra of silver nanowires produced in millifluidic reactor shows that we don't have like any other nanostructures. As you can see, we have like 2 peaks which are corresponding to silver nanowires, and like the peak which is like around 420 and is corresponding to silver nanoparticles is totally disappeared, which means that we are producing purely silver nanowires without any other nanostructures as byproduct. So far, we are able to produce silver nanowires with high aspect ratio and well-controlled in millifluidic reactor. Then the next step is that how we can increase the stability of silver nanowires towards oxidation, because like silver nanowires, when they are used in transparent conductive films manufacturing, they are prone to be oxidized in like oxidative environment. We have started to modify the surface of silver nanowires using palladium nanoparticles in order to increase their stability against oxidation. And here are some like SEM and TEM result of silver nanowires, as well as modified silver nanowires using palladium nanoparticles at different galvanic replacement reactions, by which we can see that we can deposit the palladium on the surface of silver nanowires. However, it's really important for us to have silver nanowires which are modified using palladium nanoparticles just like in about 5% to make sure that they are stable against oxidation as well. But at the same time, we are not like reducing the smoothness of the surface of silver nanowires, and also we are not decreasing the conductivity of silver nanowires, which is important for us. And these reactions have been done in kind of batch system, which means that we produce silver nanowires in millifluidic reactor, we separate them, wash them, and then we had them as a suspension that we use like the palladium precursor or other reagent to modify their surface using palladium nanoparticles. And this is the reason that we call that as batch modification. In the next step, we got another step and have kind of semi-continuous modification of silver nanowires, which means that when we have silver nanowires produced in millifluidic system, the outlet of the system is going to be collected in a beaker, and it's going to be cooled down to have that at room temperature, and then we are going to add the palladium precursor or other reagent necessary for the galvanic replacement reaction, by which we are going to modify the surface of silver nanowires using palladium nanoparticles. And this is the reason that we call that as semi-continuous modification, because silver nanowire production is continuous, and in outlet we have the silver nanowires in ethylene glycol, not water, and then we are adding the aqueous solution of other palladium reagent or other reagent that we need for the modification. But our ultimate goal is to have continuous synthesis of silver nanowires and continuous modification of silver nanowires using palladium nanoparticles. And here you can see the millifluidic setup that we have in our lab in order to do that. We haven't used that, but we are going to use this system to produce silver nanowires continuously, have them modified using palladium nanoparticles at optimized reaction condition, and then finally we can collect this millifluidic setup by which we can produce modified silver nanowires to the printing machine, which was developed and designed by Dr. Esmay and is available in our lab, by which we will be able to synthesize silver nanowires, modify their surface, formulate ink with the desired rheological behavior that we need for this printing machine, as well as substrate that we are going to use, and ultimately produce transparent conductive films. So here was a summary about the first project that is going on in our lab. However, there are some other fundamental understanding that we are trying to figure out in this system, either in the millifluidic synthesis of silver nanowires using chemical polyol process, or the modification of silver nanowires. We are using different characterization techniques in our lab, including UVVs and FDIR, and also we have planned to submit a general user proposal to Oregon National Lab that we can do some XAS characterization and get more fundamental understanding to propose a reaction mechanisms behind these continuous processes. Being that said, I'm going to go to next project, which is a project in collaboration with Purdue University that just recently funded by National Science Foundation. And this project is about protein engineering and processing of plant virus templates for controllable nanoparticle synthesis. For this project, we are collaborating with Dr. Salman, Dr. Hayes, and Dr. Price at Purdue University. And for this project, they are going to express a new plant virus, which is rod-shaped, barely striped mosaic virus, in a bacterial system that we call them as virus-like particles. And then we are going to use those virus-like particles as biotemplates for the production of one-dimensional metal nanostructures such as silver, palladium, and gold. While we are waiting to receive those BSMV virus-like particles that we can use in our lab as biotemplate, we have started a collaboration with Dr. Josh Ramsey, a professor of chemical engineering, to express another template that has been used before, which is tobacco mosaic virus-like particles in bacterial system that we can use as biotemplate for the attachment of different metal nanostructures. And the student who is working on this project is Windola, who is second-year master student in our group. So again, the objective of this project is to understand the role key barely striped mosaic virus amino acid residue in nanoparticle synthesis and develop tools to control PSMV templated nanoparticle synthesis. And our goal is to answer a couple of questions. For example, how we can control the dimensions of PSMV virus-like particles. And this is the part that is going to be done at Purdue University. And then what factors control the rate of metal deposition, different type of metal like palladium, silver, gold. And this is like the question that we are going to answer here at OSU. And then can VLP self-interactions be kind of like modified to enable metal deposition under broader processing conditions in terms of like temperature, pH, and also can we have like other metal rather than like the palladium, which has been used a lot to be mineralized on the surface of like different plant virus templates, for example, like gold or like silver or like any other metal nanostructure. And again, this is like the part that is going to be done here at OSU. And finally, what we are going to do is that how we can find a way by which we can remove the template, for example, annually, that we can produce single crystalline metal nanostructures like silver nanorods, palladium nanorods, or gold nanorods, by which we can increase conductivity. And definitely the outcome will broaden the toolset of template and nanomaterial synthesis by introducing a new and more economical biotemplate. And also definitely it will have like broader impact on other research areas such as sensing, nanoelectronics, photonics, and medicine, in which these metal nanostructures can be used. I'm going to share some of like the results that we got so far about TMV virus-like particles that have been expressed and in bacterial system and purified. As you can see the TEM image, we got really nice VLP nanostructures without like any aggregates or like any other, for example, these structures. And we use these virus-like particles as template for the attachment of palladium nanoparticles. And here are some of like the TEM image of palladium nanoparticles mineralized on TMV VLP. As you can see, we got like the palladium nanoparticles deposited on the surface of TMV VLP. However, there are a couple of challenges, including like the aggregation of like these palladium nanoparticles, as well as aggregation of TMV VLPs. And we are working on like different reaction conditions, specifically concentration, pH, and like the concentration ratio to overcome this challenge. And the other thing that I need to mention is that these TEM image are just like after one cycle of coating of TMV VLP using palladium nanoparticles. Usually couple of coating cycles are used to have like a smooth and uniform palladium nanoparticles on the surface of a TMV VLP or like other biotemplate. And what we hypothesize is that if we use the millifluidic setup that we have developed in our lab, we can get the uniform coating with less number of uniform coating of palladium nanoparticles on the surface of TMV VLP with less number of coating in a millifluidic reactor compared to the batch reactor. Next, I'm going to talk about another project, which is kind of similar to the first project that I was talking about. However, the main difference is that we are using like totally green and sustainable reducing agent and solvent in order to produce silver as well as gold nanostructure that we can use to formulate ink and actually create and manufacture green and sustainable transparent conductive films. Sina, who is a second year PhD student, is working on this project. And for this project, our objective again is the discovery of reaction conditions and mechanisms in a millifluidic reactor to produce the green and sustainable silver and gold nanostructures. And our goal is their synthesis as well as development a continuous setup that can be connected to the printing machine, that we can continuously produce like these metal nanostructures like silver and gold in like a totally green and sustainable manner without like any harsh solvent at room temperature with like, aqueous solution. And then we can connect this system to the printing machine to create transparent conductive films on the surface of paper or plastic. And also we are really interested to understand what's going on behind this process using like different characterization techniques available in our lab. For example, if there is a specific green reducing agent that can act as both as reducing agent and capping agent for the synthesis of a specific metal nanostructure, what are the functional groups that they are responsible, or what's the reaction mechanisms behind this process? because by having this understanding, we will be able to control the process better. And definitely the outcome will be like a novel, green, and sustainable techniques for the continuous synthesis of silver and gold nanostructures, and it will broadly contribute to the development of stretchable and wearable nanoelectronics. And here I'm going to show some of like the results from this project. For example, Sina, who is working on this project, has been trying like lots of green reducing agent at different reaction conditions. And here is like one of like the result that he got, in which we were able to produce silver nanostructures, including one-dimensional silver nanostructure that we are really interested, using tannic acid at room temperature and using water as solvent. And depending on the source of tannic acid that we use, we can get either very long silver nanowires with very high aspect ratio, or some like nanorods. And like the UVVs kind of like prove that like the nanostructures that we are getting are like the combination of one-dimensional silver nanostructures as well as silver nanoparticles. And here are the results from the batch synthesis of silver nanostructures. However, as I mentioned, we are interested to continuous synthesis of these green metal nanostructure, or like these one-dimensional silver nanostructures. And we have recently used a new setup for the millifluidic synthesis of silver nanowires, or like silver nanostructures in general, because we still get lots of other nanostructures, including nanoparticles, in this system to continuously produce silver nanowires. Even the yield of silver nanowires, or like one-dimensional silver nanostructures in this system, is lower compared to the batch one that I showed you in previous slide. However, we believe that by modifying the millifluidic setup and control some like reaction parameters as well as reactor design, we will be able to increase the yield of one-dimensional silver nanostructures. Here you can see, like, for example, a setup that Sina has been used to have a segmented flow reactor, either using silicone oil or air, to reduce the coating of silver nanostructures inside the tubing, because we believe that like these coating or like fouling that we get has like adverse effect on the size and morphology of silver nanostructures that we are producing. And ultimately, when like this design and its reaction condition is optimized, we are going to connect this continuous system to the printing machine, which is available in our lab, to be able to continuously produce silver nanostructures and print them on flexible substrate. We can also consider, for example, the modification of silver nanowires produced in this system using palladium nanoparticles. And again, the only difference between like this project and the other, actually it's like a big and huge difference, is that we are using just green and sustainable reducing agent and like solvent, which means that we are producing green and sustainable transparent conductive films. Next, I'm going hopefully to convince you why we call that as like a smart nanotechnology and nanomanufacturing. Maybe so far you are thinking that so these processes are not like smart, and why, I mean, what she means by like a smart nanotechnology and nanomanufacturing. You are right, they are not smart yet, but we have planned to make them like smart. And here is like another project that we have recently initiated, and actually it's like a family collaboration in which I'm collaborating with my husband, Dr. Nick Rahimi, who is assistant professor in information system and technology at Southern University, and my brother-in-law, who is the department chair of computer science and engineering at Mississippi State University, in which we are going to integrate artificial intelligence and machine learning in nanomaterial synthesis and characterization. And as you can see in this slide, again, our objective is expanding an engagement of artificial intelligence in nanomaterial synthesis and characterization, and broadly in nanotechnology. we are hoping, so I'm not going to go through like the goal and outcome to make sure that I wouldn't be out of time, but our ultimate goal is having a model that can predict the size and morphology of metal nanostructures or other nanomaterials that we can produce, and hopefully in the future we can like have a smart system that can be controlled as well. Finally, as I mentioned, we are envisioning a lab which would be able to produce metal nanostructures or other types of nanomaterials for the use by other labs and researchers. And we collaborated with Dr. Josh Ramsey, and we have used the minifluidic reactor designed in our lab for the production of protein polymer nanoparticles that they use for the drug delivery. And we have shown that this system can provide a very good control over the size and size distribution of protein polymer nanoparticles that can be produced compared to batch reactors that usually used for the production of these kind of nanomaterial. Being that said, hopefully I gave you an overview about what's going on in our lab, why it is green and sustainable, and why we are hoping to have like a smart nanotechnology and nanomanufacturing. Being that said, I would like to thank all of the students who are working in my lab, my collaborators here at Oklahoma State University, and my collaborator at other institutions like Purdue, SIU, and MSU. And last but not least, I would like to thank NSF for financial support, as well as SEED and School of Chemical Engineering here at OSU. Thank you all for listening to my talk. I would be happy to take any questions you may have.
Very good. All right. Well, the paper is open for questions. I would invite you to go ahead and unmute your camera and feel free to ask questions of Dr. Hamady. Dr. Hamady, thank you for your talk. It was very interesting. I'll pause for a minute and see if there's a question or two. I do have some, but I'll pause. My question is, what are the next steps for you in terms of the work? I mean, I see these projects. You've got a couple of NSF grants. They seem to be fairly aligned, but kind of where do you see this kind of in the coming years?
So the first thing is that, long term, we are hoping to have like artificial intelligence and machine learning integrated to our system, because right now it's not. Right now we are just like getting data, for example, from like using TEM, STM, and other like characterization techniques, and how we can use like these data to be able to develop a model that can predict the formation of like different metal nanostructures or different morphology of nanostructures, or for example by like the fundamental understanding that we can get how this model can predict like the other green reducing agent that can be used for the synthesis of specific metal nanostructures. And definitely we are not going to kind of limit ourselves on like the production of metal nanostructures. We are hoping to be able to produce other nanomaterials like what we have done about like protein polymer nanoparticles, and also application wise how like these metal nanostructures or other nanomaterials that they are used in our lab can be used, for example, for sensor, because silver nanowires is like a great material that can be used to develop sensor and biosensor, or like the palladium to be used as catalysis. So definitely we need to collaborate with other groups and researchers to be able to apply like these metal nanostructures for those applications.
Very good. Do you see this work primarily finding its way into electronic device manufacture, or is that the intended audience there?
Yes, exactly. Because as I mentioned, for example, for the first project, like the target application is the Internet of Nanothin, in which we are going to produce like the transparent conductive films. So definitely like these transparent conductive films that can be used, hopefully when we have like the large scale production for the nanoelectronics.
Very good. Okay. Any other questions for Dr. Hamady? Well, Dr. Hamady, thank you very much for your talk. I appreciate it. That was quite good. I enjoyed that a good bit.